News of the day: the Trump tariffs, or the IEEPA tariffs, have been declared unconstitutional, unlawful by the Supreme Court of these United States of America in a 6-3 decision. Some people are raging about it. Others, if they had been following us at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, would not be surprised whatsoever. In fact, I believe, and I'm fairly certain, we've been calling it for a very long time right now. This is a tweet from Robert Barnes from November 5, 2025, in which he says, after listening to today's oral arguments, Trump's tariffs are cooked. Trump abandoned using tariffs for industrial policy related to the economic emergency of our trade deficit, instead choosing to use them like sanctions as a political toy. Free pick on Kalshi. Bet the no. Had you bet that, you would have made some money. Forget about betting it, because more important than money is pride. More important than money is accuracy. More important than money is reliability. Because with those three things, you can be sure that you can make the money should you need it, because people will be able to have faith in and rely on your assessments. We've been saying it for a while. There's a link to the tweet. We've been saying it for a while that the second Trump started using the tariffs not as something required under the IEEPA, which is I had the acronym up here in the backdrop. It's the emergencies thingamajig or other. Hold on one second. What was it? Oh, goodness sake here. What does IEEPA stand for? I always forget the acronym here. The International Emergencies Economic Powers Act. So once he stopped using it ostensibly for that purpose and began using it as a political cudgel, as good as that might have made people feel, and as necessary as that might have been, it did undermine his argument that it was an economic emergency that he was imposing these tariffs for, and as opposed to political policy. So the report of the day coming out, get out of here later. I'm not subscribing to your crap. All right, this is from the AP. Supreme Court strikes down Trump's sweeping tariffs, upending central plank of economic agenda. It's not a full catastrophe, because if you've been following us for a while, either me daily, 3 o'clock on Rumble, or the Sunday show, Viva and Barnes Law for the People, or our community with the regular Bourbon with Barnes, it was predicted. There are remedies. You can have Congress coming in and enacting legislation to retroactively validate the tariffs that were struck down today. There's plenty of ways to deal with it. Trump made an announcement that he's going to deal with it in another way, which we're going to get to in a second. But the news is Washington. Supreme Court struck down Donald Trump's far-reaching global tariffs on Friday, handing him a stinging loss on an issue critical to his economic agenda. The 6-3 decision centers on tariffs imposed under an emergency powers law, including the sweeping reciprocal tariffs he levied on nearly every other country. The high court, call it the highest court, ruled his use of an emergency powers law to set import duties without Congress was illegal. I mean, by the way, this is exactly what we predicted. We're not going to get too far into the judgment, because it's basically everything we've been saying from the beginning is that the emergencies law was somewhat used for political purposes. And if it was to be used in the way Trump was using it, then the emergencies element of it became superfluous, effectively. Trump told a news conference he's absolutely ashamed of justices who voted to strike down his tariffs, calling the decision deeply disappointing. The decision was incorrect. There were a lot of other legal minds saying it was legally correct, or saying this is where it was likely headed. But it doesn't matter, because we have many powerful alternatives. He did not specify them. Well, you don't need to specify them right now. I forget. I'm going to go specify them for you. Here, you want to see? He just put out a statement where he talked about the other resources that he might avail himself to, failing Congress simply enacting legislation that would be retroactive, ratifying the tariffs.
Under the various tariff authorities, so we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations.
I mean, incidentally, all of these other potential remedies, Section 301, Section 232, 1962 Trade Expansion Act, Section 338, 1930 Tariff Act, Congress simply ratifying it, have been known. And some might say, if you want to say there's 4D chess here, this is where you might say there's a little 4D chess. You get a little, 2 or 3 other kicks at the can, create a financial situation that the courts are going to have a hard time undoing without creating devastating economic consequences to the country as a whole. And you're going to put pressure on Congress to ratify this at the very least, or at the very least to find other ways of effectively not undoing the financial gain, which is objective and undeniable, that has occurred under Trump's tariffs, as unlawful as they might have been under the IEEPA.
To protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And
I think he read his own truth post.
And I say quite simply, which I've said for a long time, make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have to use that, but I don't think we'll ever give up on MAGA. MAGA is always going to be with us.
You could do just turn it into MAG, make America greater, which would always be true. Now, this video, I actually, hold on a second. Yeah, this was from today in response to the decision. So a number of other methods that they can use to get to the same outcome. And now that there is a financial issue in terms of simply refunding all of the ill-gotten tariffs that would have a catastrophic effect on America, it'll put more pressure on Congress to remedy this for the betterment of America, although you're going to have the argument that Democrats might not want to do that. They might like the economic catastrophe, so they can blame it on Trump heading into 2026. We'll see. Oh, shut the F up about Trump playing 5D chess. No, I said 4D, first of all. And what is more or less undeniable about this is that a financial economic situation has been set up such that simply annulling the tariffs and reimbursing, I don't know how many, was it $150 billion? Is very unlikely. And so you could say, shut the F up. Okay, it was a mistake. Well, now you can still pivot off of the mistake to turn it into a net positive, which is say, yeah, it'll be a catastrophe to reimburse all that money. So just get Congress to retroactively ratify it through legislation. It wasn't Trump's ability to do it under the IEEPA. Get Congress to ratify it. Now, some people out there, and you might or may not be aware of this, one of the conspiracies of the day is that as a result of this ruling, Howard Lutnick, indirectly through his children, who are now the directors or in charge of Cantor Fitzgerald, stand to make billions from this, because they were basically buying up the potential for this decision to come down for pennies on the dollar or percentages on the dollar, such that if there is in fact a reimbursement, which they have bought the rights to from people who paid into these tariffs, well, then they might stand to benefit a lot as a result of this ruling. This is from Wired, and it's from July 2025, to explain what was going on, in that there was always this risk, and we had talked about it, we had touched on it, in that if they declared the tariffs unlawful and there had to be a reimbursement, well, everybody who paid into these tariffs, say a company paid $10 million in tariffs, well, they're going to get reimbursed that $10 million if they're declared unlawful, and America is forced to reimburse them. Well, Cantor Fitzgerald said, okay, well, we'll buy the risk. So here, we'll give you $2-3 million now for your $10 million that might be coming back to you, and we'll have the rights to claim it if and when. Well, now that they've been declared unlawful, these tariffs, their odds of recouping that on a reimbursement have certainly gone up. This was reported back in the day. Trump's Commerce Secretary loves tariffs. His former investment bank is taking bets against them. Subsidiary of Cantor Fitzgerald, which is run by the sons of U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, is letting clients essentially bet that President Donald Trump's tariffs will be struck down in court. Now, people can call me whatever freaking names you want after this, because I am probably the first to look for conspiracies. And rightly so. And people are saying, look at this, Howard Lutnick's family is now going to benefit off of this ruling. which strikes down the tariffs, they made a bet. They made a bet which actually you would have thought, had they done something that would have banked on the decision being favorable to Trump, then you could argue some form of corruption. You could argue some form of maybe, I don't know, insider information if they knew that this was going to be the unlikely ruling in favor of Trump. Here they made their bets. And this is just the nature of the incestuous relationships of business and politics and government. So Cantor Fitzgerald, they find all that to say, they made a bet on this ruling. They might never even recoup what they bet on, because if they somehow retroactively ratify these tariffs, I don't know that they still recoup what they bought at a discounted rate. We'll get there. Cantor Fitzgerald, financial services company led by the sons of U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, is creating a way for investors to bet that President Donald Trump's signature tariffs will be struck down in court. Traders of the firm investment banking subsidiary Cantor Fitzgerald and Company say they have the capacity to buy the rights to hundreds of millions of dollars in potential refunds from companies who have paid Trump's tariffs, according to documents viewed by Wired. Lutnick ran Cantor Fitzgerald for nearly 30 years until he was confirmed when he turned over control of the firm to his two sons, Kyle and Brandon, who are both in their 20s. I mean, this is where there's a little bit of, they're going to say, well, he turned over interest of it. He doesn't know of the internals. He's no longer an executive. Horse crap. This company is always going to have dinner time conversations. They're going to have information that members of the club would have access to and outsiders like myself would not. So set that aside. He no longer has an interest in it, but his two sons are running it. And if they stand to gain, he's got an interest in it. That's just the nature of family. Anyhow, that's it. Since joining Trump administration, Lutnick has emerged as one of the most vocal supporters of the president's tariffs policies, which Lutnick has said would raise hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in revenues for the United States, eventually eliminating the need for Americans making less than $150,000 to pay taxes. I can see the conspiracy theories. People are going to say Lutnick knowingly pushed a policy that he knew would get struck down by the Supreme Court so that his children at Cantor Fitzgerald could reap the benefits when they buy those tariffs, the rights to those tariff reimbursements at a discount to recoup them. My big issue in this, on the one hand, it's not clear they're even going to get them back still. And maybe it was just a win-win situation. They saw the opportunity arise. It was always a risk, and it was a predictable risk, as we were predicting, that it gets struck down. And they just reap the benefit of it. And at the end of the day, the question is going to be who gets rooked by this. It's not any ordinary American. It's those who may have sold their reimbursement. The companies that may have sold their reimbursements at a discount to Cantor Fitzgerald. But the investment bank, back to the article, that made Lutnick a billionaire is now letting certain clients wager that Trump's tariffs will eventually be ruled unlawful, at which point companies that have paid the duties can apply to get their money back. In a letter sent by Wired, a representative from Cantor said the firm was willing to trade tariff refund rights for 20 or 30% of what companies have paid in duties. So far, quoting, a company that paid $10 million say they could expect to receive $2 to $3 million in a trade, the representative wrote. We have the capacity to trade up to several hundred million of these presently and can likely upsize that in the future to meet potential demand. Cantor said, Cantor has already landed at least one major deal according to the letter viewed by Wired. We've already put a trade through representing about $10 million in IEEPA rights and anticipate that number will balloon in the coming weeks. Experts say the deals are a form of litigation finance, an increasingly popular category of investment in which financial firms seek to make money from potential legal settlements. Many lawsuits can take years to resolve, and the structure can allow individuals and companies to get more upfront or their lawyer fees, whatever. So that's the gist of the corruption that people are alleging. Oh, well, now Trump's insider man, Cantor Fitzgerald, run by the sons of Howard Lutnick, are going to make billions off this. Possibly. And I do wonder if I'm not missing something in terms of how they would make that regardless of whether or not Congress retroactively ratifies the tariffs in one way or another. But that's the corruption, that's the concern. Now, back to the article on this. I think that's about the size of it right now. Yeah, I don't think not much more to review on that. I think we're going to talk about it on Sunday, but it was the legally sound decision, as far as I understand, but I had to go back and just, see some of the things I had said on this. Back in the day when Amy McGrath, in response to Trump, who said, if the courts somehow rule against us on tariffs, which is not expected, that would allow other countries to hold our nation hostage with their anti-American tariffs that they would use against us. This would mean the economic ruination of the United States of America. To which Spencer Hakimian says, what? What? To which Amy McGrath says he makes no sense in these posts, yet no one seems to care. To which I said, the fact that you don't understand the post doesn't mean the post is incomprehensible. It means you are an idiot, Amy. Because since you seem to be an idiot, let me dumb it down for you. What it means is that if the courts prohibit President Trump from imposing tariffs on foreign products, those same foreign nations can continue to impose whatever tariffs they want on American products without America being able to respond in kind. In other words, it would be the judiciary usurping the powers of the executive and sacrificing America and Americans to unfair and asymmetrical trade relationships with foreign and sometimes hostile nations. Is that clear enough for you? And now what you have is not, I don't think it's spin. You have Trump coming out and saying, this decision declared illegal under the IEEPA. And so now we're going to go find other methods to impose tariffs because while we might have been using them as a political cudgel, undermining the argument that it was in response to an economic emergency, we have other means. And now that we're sitting on $150 billion in tariffs, the reasonable prospect that we might actually be able to say, we'll impose tariffs and not charge income tax or impose income tax on people making $150,000 or $250,000 as a family. Well, now that you've got that in the bank, pun intended, you might have more support for it, and there might be more pressure on Congress to make sure that it happens.